Okay, welcome back to TribPreps. We have now completed 2 weeks of the high school football season. It is now the early morning hours of Saturday, almost 1 o'clock. And we just got done with all of our work for the night. So other than this, which is kind of the favorite part, it's nice to be able to talk about all this kind of stuff. But let's first, as we always do, go over a score list in terms of what happened tonight in the Cooley region for high school football. We had Aquinas winning 42-7 over Onalaska Luther. Central with a 45-30 win over Eau Claire Memorial. Toma 27, West Salem 13. James will talk a lot about that. Medford 52, Onalaska 35. River Falls 35, Holman 7. Sparta beats Mauston 44-13. Westby, after scoring 52 points in week 1, they beat Benton Scales Mound 68-22 tonight. Cashton 55, Indy Gilmanton 0. Bangor 34, Turtle Lake 20. Brookwood 26, Viroqua 22, Abbotsford 33, Melman 6, Elmwood Plum City 52-20 over Blair Taylor. Prairie du Chien gets another close win, 21-19 over Darlington and went down to the end. Wisconsin Dells 35, Black River Falls 0. DeSoto opens the 8-man season with a 60-12 win at Williams Bay, which was a 178-yard mile, 178-mile drive for them. I'll get it out at some point. I looked it up just because I was curious. I was over at UWL for the Aquinas game, but we need to start with James and this Toma stuff that's going on and beating a West Salem team that played very well last week, and Logan Rufflett just running over everybody in his way.
Yeah, we kind of talked about beforehand how I think we could both agree at best, or going in, we thought Toma might be able to hang with them. They might be able to, I thought they could.
You thought that more than me.
I don't.
After watching West Salem, I really didn't think. It didn't cross my mind that Toma could win this game. I really thought West Salem had a really good debut to the season last week, and what I really liked was their line play. So I thought they would be able to do something with the Toma running game, and that was not the case at all.
No. I'll say this from the outset, it felt like Toma definitely felt confident that they could compete and win this game, because it felt like from the outset they were physical, they were out physicaling, if that's a word, West Salem. They had that opening drive touchdown, 14-yard run for Logan, and what did he finish with? 260 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 shy of the school record, I heard.
Okay.
Tying the school record. They just have, a workhorse in him in their backfield that he can take, 20 to 30 plus, carries a game, and he can, deliver
30 both weeks.
Yeah, he can deliver on run 30 as much as he can on run, 1, 2, whatever. Okay. In the trenches, like you mentioned, I thought Toma definitely did a lot better physics-wise. But I think the biggest issue that they had was they just didn't get in a rhythm offensively to respond. I thought going into it would be, Toma is going to be able to run. It's going to be a matter of when does West Salem catch up? When do they start returning the physicality to them? And when do they start letting their offense work? And in truth, they never fully caught up to Toma. They had spurts late in the first half and throughout the second half, but they never really had enough time to get their legs under them because Toma controlled the ball so much with their run game.
Those are two teams that generally are very physical teams.
Yes.
So the fact that Toma had that much of an edge is very impressive.
And that was something that, talking with Coach Jen afterwards, he said that's something we're going to evaluate is the physicality and who is bringing it, who wasn't, what's going to be the best group to put out there to match a team's physicality like Toma, because there's certainly going to be a lot of teams like that in the Cooley.
Are they just that big up front? Or is it a matter of they can move too?
They're pretty big, and they could move. They definitely were able to get blockers in the right spots. They had, obviously they could get you 3 yards in a cloud of dust, but they could also break it outside and have guys follow. And they broke off a few big runs, 35-yard touchdown in the second half for Logan. He had one late that basically sealed the deal that was 25 yards. They definitely can get out and run with him in space to block. But I think tonight it was just a matter of energy. It really felt like Toma from the outset was confident that they could win this game and were comfortable from the outset, and West Salem could never get comfortable offensively, and Toma was just pounding the rock away enough to where they couldn't really get comfortable defensively either.
Yeah, what a great win for Toma, which hasn't had very many of those lately.
Yeah.
The last couple of years have been tough. As we said, they're 2-0 for the first time since 2019, which isn't that terribly long ago, but they also ended up 3-6 that year. That's not to say that reflects on what's going to happen this year. This running attack, I know we're 2 weeks in, but when you got one kid who's got zeroing in on 500 yards already.
Yep.
I think he's at 5 touchdowns. I think he had one last week.
He's 95 yards away from matching the top rusher last year for Toma. So they've got something figured out, definitely.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. So great game for Toma. And we'll see how West Salem bounces back playing Westby, I think, next week.
You want to talk about when you're going to want to have an offense that's comfortable to keep up with what Westby's doing.
Yeah, 68 tonight. Again, impressive for them. I was out at UWL for the Aquinas game. I think we saw what a lot of people expected to see. After Aquinas loses to Prairie du Chien last week, they come back. They scored 42 points all in the first half of this one. Very comfortable, lots of energy. They came out and scored on the first play. It was a short little screen pass to David Moline. He went 67 yards, came back on a flag, but they still ended up finishing off the drive. They had one stretch in the second quarter. They scored 3 touchdowns in the span of about 2.5 minutes. They had touchdown, interception, touchdown, interception, touchdown. It was very impressive the way they did it. And they beat a team that won 35-0 last week. I know they beat Blair Taylor, which is a little different, but Blair Taylor's had a lot of success in recent years. So that Luther had reason to be proud of that win that they got there, but they just couldn't get anything really going in this game tonight. We'll see how they bounce back when they start conference play next week. But still, they got a touchdown, Logan Barr. That's going to be, the entire season in the Bluffs, that's going to be a threat to every opponent, having Logan Barr out there and having Jackson Kendall be able to throw it. So I fully anticipate seeing different Luther teams in the future. Aquinas just needed this, and they needed to not go out there and win by a touchdown or two. They needed to go out there and dominate, and they went out and did that. So I was impressed with what Aquinas was able to do. I was also very impressed with West Salem last week, so keep that in mind. In terms of go ahead.
I was going to say on Aquinas, you talked about how last week was just a matter, when talking with some of those people, that it felt like a matter of preparation and maybe going forward with the opponents that they have in front of them, the preparation won't be nearly as much of a problem. They're going back to the Cooley where they're going to have a lot of familiarity. Luther, I'm sure they had a lot of familiarity going in. I think the big thing is, I look at Prairie du Chien and it's like, I have no idea quite yet. And there's so many teams like them where it's like, we're not really quite sure if they're really good, but they're certainly coming out with good results through 2 weeks.
It's all right. It's been a weird season already. And Central scoring 45 tonight. They were up 45-14 in that game, I think it was. And then Memorial scored a couple of touchdowns late. Jude Alvarado kicked a 33-yard field goal in that one. I think he had 3 touchdown passes, if I remember right. It is all correct on lacrossetribune.com. But he had another good game. That's 2 in a row for him. Gavin Shepard had a 100-yard rushing game. He had a couple of touchdowns in that one too. Henry Meyer had a decent receiving night. So a really good progress there from Central, going from beating Eau Claire North up to beating Eau Claire Memorial. We'll see where that takes them. In terms of Sparta, got another big win. They played Mauston 44-13. That's the same team Toma beat last week by a lesser margin, I think, if I remember right. But Laufenberg, 2 touchdown passes, 2 touchdown runs. So he's dominating as expected. Bangor scored 34 tonight, didn't complete a pass in the game, had 418 rushing yards, I think, if I remember right. Samuel Kropp and Chase Horseman kind of dominated there. Horseman had 3 touchdowns.
It sounds sort of like they had the game I sort of kind of expected Toma to have, where it's like, where last week Melman had did a decent job in the second half of running on them, and it was just going to be a matter of Bangor outrunning them. And I haven't seen the numbers, but rushing for 416 will help alleviate whatever defensive issues they might be having on the rushing side.
Yep. So another good one there. Cashton 55-0 over Indy Gilmanton. Eagles continue to dominate there. And Westby, it just kind of seemed like they had contribution all over the place. Anders Stackson's been a big play guy for 2 weeks. He had 3 catches in the game tonight. I think it was 140 yards. They were all touchdowns. And they were all in the first half. So, again, I think they have West Salem next week, if I remember right, but that'll be potentially quite a game because you have 2 teams coming from completely different angles. Westby's going to want to right the ship there. Westby's going to want to keep going at the clip it's been going, which is not going to be easy against that defense, I don't think. Because as much as Tolman did tonight, they scored 27. And Westby's been scoring 50 and 60. I don't see anyone doing that to West Salem. So it'll be a matter of West Salem can get that offense going. I think the defense will be there. That's what I have on games tonight. Anything else you want to add?
I kind of mentioned Prairie du Chien. 2-0 was a great start.
Both games going down to the end?
Yeah, that came down to the end where Prairie basically stopped a 2-point conversion at the end of regulation to avoid overtime, and who knows what happens there, as we sort of learned from the Logan game yesterday. Sort of anything can go down in overtime.
Yeah. When you have Blake Theory on your side, you can do just about anything, maybe.
Yep.
All right, well, that wraps up week 2 here for us. All of our stories, videos, photos from games tonight can all be found on lacrossetribune.com. Go there, you can find the links to follow pretty easily to see all the coverage that we have. We'll continue to have more throughout the weekend and into next week. We'll get into some UWL stuff next week with their game season opener coming up. But in terms of tonight, that takes care of us. And we'll be back next Friday night for week 3 and week 1 in Minnesota. We'll have some games from across the water there. So thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.